Hey friends, Brendan Burns and I are doing some live comedy shows, Cardiff and Newport, Wales, July 8th and 9th. Of course, the Edinburgh Fringe Festival, Edinburgh, Scotland, all of August. ColtCabana.com is where you find details. But for now, enjoy the show.
This is the art of wrestling with professional wrestler Colt Cabana.
All right, how you guys doing? Come on in, sit down, relax. You're about to listen to the art of wrestling. Professional wrestling podcast. It's a life podcast. It's personal journals and entry into the minds and souls and hearts and lives of people involved in the world of professional wrestling. I'm your host. My name is Colt Cabana. I'm a live podcaster. I'm a regular podcaster. I'm a bit of a comedian outside of the ring, kind of an improviser, maybe a stand-up. Most importantly, though, I'm a comedian inside the ring when I am a professional wrestler. I'm sitting here live in my studio apartment in Chicago, Illinois. Before we go any further, this is a fan-supported and listener-supported podcast supported by people just like you. Give it to you free of charge every single Thursday on ColtCabana.com, iTunes, SoundCloud, wherever you get your podcasts from. A couple great ways that you can support. Rate, review, and subscribe on iTunes. Tell a friend, tweet it out, Facebook it out, Instagram story it out. Best way that you can support, though, ColtMerch.com, DigitalColt.com, buttons, pictures, posters, DVDs, lapel pins, little micro brawlers, Wrestling Road Diaries, aplenty. It's all available. ColtMerch.com, DigitalColt.com. We're back, baby. We're back in Chicago. We're back to the regularly scheduled program. And I love doing those WrestleCon podcasts. The numbers, they say that you don't love the WrestleCon podcasts, but I love them. I think they're fun. They're very odd. This year was a little interesting. It was just this giant room in the middle of the con, and I thought it wasn't as intimate as the years before. I like it when it's intimate. I'm going to try to tell the guys at High Spots, Michael over there, to let's put us in a corner away from everybody so it could just be us in our little spot. Some of the fun things that came out of that. How about me and Pete Gass? We're buddies now. I threw a picture on Instagram. I mean, for years, people have always told me I look like Pete Gass. Started with Tracy Smothers and then everybody in between. And he said the same to me. And now we've come together like brothers. And we had a meeting, and we podcasted a little bit, and I hope that was a treat for you. Also, Marty was there, and anytime Marty and I get to hang out and make some content, I feel it's gold. I feel we could even get laughs out of the weirdest situations. Speaking of that, Marty and I are going to Boise, Idaho. I think it's going to be September 8th. It hasn't been announced, but I've decided that I'm never going to wrestle in Boise, Idaho, and there's got to be fans from Boise, Idaho out there. It's probably a big town and a big city, but I don't know. For me, in my journeys, there's never any wrestling out there, so we're going to do a comedy festival and bring the comedy show, and I'm excited about that. Oh, I did say in the beginning, I did some improv comedy. Not that I do improv comedy, but Sarah Shockey of Marty and Sarah Love Wrestling said, "Hey, Colt, come do some improv comedy at the Annoyance in Chicago." And I was like, all right. And that's the best situation when there's like no pressure. And she's just like, you're going to be on a team and you're going to do some funny stuff and just go up there. And I kind of know the rules to improv. I've seen a lot of live improv and I took some classes at Comedy Sports years ago. So, you know, I wasn't a total fool out there. I get yes and, that's a thing. And I just yes-anded my little dick off. I'm going to restart. I just yes-anded my big old dick off. And I had a lot of fun. And I hope I get invited back. And speaking of Chicago comedy, I was on a podcast called Hello from the Magic Tavern, which is apparently a very, very popular improv comedy podcast. And I held my own with some Chicago improv legends. I made up a character. I was Brotar, Brodus Tarver, a mixture of Brodus Clay and Michael Tarver, shortened his name to Brotar, which is a bro up front and a tar downstairs. And that happened. Something else that happened in front of a live crowd was this podcast that's on today with Larry Zbyskzko. Now, this was different because usually I'll do these live podcasts in front of a crowd, and they'll kind of be like an entertainment show. I mean, you saw it the last 2 weeks. You know, I got 5 people on. Everyone kind of gets 10 minutes, and then we put it out as a show. But this one was done just like any podcast I've ever done. The dude comes in, we chit-chat a little bit, we sit down, and we just start recording. But it happened to be in front of a handful of people at the Team Vision Dojo in Orlando, Florida. And sometimes you can hear them in the background, but I'm not trying to make people chuckle. I'm just trying to have a real conversation with Larry Zbyskzko. And we do. And it's really fun. And I'm not sure he had any clue what was going on or why we were doing this or what was really happening. He has no concept of the Art of Wrestling podcast. He knows who I am, but I'll be honest, I think that day he maybe didn't know who I was. I mean, I've done stuff with him in the ring. We did some stuff at Ring of Honor years ago at a WrestleCon in California. But that's to expect with some of these guys in their generation. I'm sure when he saw my face and he put my name together, it all came back to me. There was a lot of stuff that I didn't get to talk about on the last two shows, and I guess I'll just sum some stuff up. I did a show called Old Wrestling where, listen, Matt Classic, he might have wrestled M-Dog 20, and I don't know if you guys know, Matt Cross's grandma comes to all the local shows, and she's the best. She just roams around. Sometimes you'll see some of these guys or girls at shows where they just kind of roam around and they're really into it, and sometimes it's like they're role-playing to themselves. I don't know what's really going on in their head, but they've got an agenda, and they seem to dig it because they're always at all these shows. Well, she's the same way, wearing her Matt Cross t-shirt, and Matt Cross, he did a Spartan gimmick many years ago when he was traveling all over for Rikishi's promotion in Italy or whatever it was, and he would have these 300 swords, and he's got probably 1,000 foam 300 swords, and she walks around with the sword, and she's just walking around the whole show, and it's so endearing and cute. And she was there the next week too at AIW, where I found myself rooming with little Guido and seeing Super Crazy for the first time since some Japan tours. So those were some of the actions that I had. I did WrestlePro in New Jersey. I wrestled Alex Reynolds. Many people are sleeping on Alex Reynolds. I think he's one of the better wrestling talents, and I'm waiting for some big promotion to scoop him up and make him a star. I also did an AAW show on a Saturday. I'm pretty sure it was Jack Swagger's first show in America on the indie scene. And when you wrestle in front of 200 fans in Berwyn, Illinois for dollar beers, that's when I say, welcome to independent wrestling, buddy. So you love it, or that's the sign to be like, oh, fuck, I gotta get out of this. I know years ago for me, I made the choice of love it. That's why I'm still doing it. All right, that was my quick recap. Let's go on with the show. And let's talk about a sponsor, ProperCloth.com. They're sponsoring the song of the week, Custom Fit Shirts. And it's never been easier to order thanks to Proper Cloth. Finding a dress shirt that fits is hard. Collar's too tight, sleeves are too long, your chest is so big that you find that middle button starting to pop off. Is that just me? It just might be me. 10 easy, foolproof questions, and ProperCloth.com creates you a custom shirt in seconds. I answered them, whizzed right through them. Kind of had a fun time answering questions. I'm that weirdo who likes answering questions, and this made it even easier because then I got a shirt afterwards. Actually, I got 2 custom fit shirts that I'm probably going to debut while wearing for commentary on Ring of Honor television. And if you ever see me in a nice shirt, you know it's from Proper Cloth. Proper Cloth has over 500 fabric styles to choose from, including premium Italian and Japanese fabrics, as well as a business and casual style starting at $85 with a guaranteed fit. And if it doesn't fit, they'll remake it for free. Even GQ calls them their favorite online custom shirt maker. And I'm not talking about XPW's GQ money. Stop wearing shirts that don't fit and start looking your best with custom fitted shirts. Let me save you $20. Go to propercloth.com/Colt today. That's $20 off your first shirt at propercloth.com/Colt. The song this week was suggested by my boy, James Vanderbeek. Not that James Vanderbeek. The Beak. The Beak. He's on Twitter. The song's by DJ Martini, and it features 2 dudes that I'm going to be seeing up in Seattle this Friday at 321 Battle. Ronald McFondled and Billy the Fridge. Come hang out with me in Seattle. But first, come hang out with me and Larry Zbyskzko. But first, here's the song, Tag Team.
Promotional consideration paid for by the following.
Let's not forget about Harry's, the best razor in the world. That's right. Father's Day is right around the corner, by the way. And dads, they're impossible to shop for. Literally, I've gotten my dad a Harry shave kit for the past 3 years. It's all I know. You might as well do this too. Just go on the internet right now, get it done. Use my code, harrys.com/wrestling. $5 off their shave sets, and your dad or father figure or somebody you know who is a father will love it. There's a limited edition Father's Day set with a storm gray razor handle, chrome razor stand, foaming shaving gel, 3 replacement blades, and a travel cover, all packaged in a nice, giftable box. I know it's good, and I know it's legit because they sent me 2. One for me and one for Steve Cabana. Also, don't tell my dad that I didn't spend any money on him and I just got him a free thing from Harry's. Harry's is the best. They've been with me for years. They cut out the middleman and they pass on the savings to you. It's what I use in the apartment, It's what I use on the road. Support our sponsors and start shaving with a great razor. Go to harrys.com/wrestling right now. Get $5 off that shave set. It's a limited time, so get your dad that present or get a dad that present and do it at harrys.com/wrestling. Let me hear ya. What'd you have for breakfast this morning?
I had the Jimmy Dean breakfast bowl, the microwave, 2 minutes, bing, dog licks the thing when I'm done, and throw it in the garbage. No hassle.
Do you ever cook anything?
No.
No?
Microwave, prepared stuff I throw in the oven, fast food, protein shakes.
Is that from years of being on the road that you never want to cook anything? Or are you a guy that doesn't cook anything?
You know what? To be honest with you, I just turned 65. Bad news is I feel like I'm 30. I think I'm 30, And I feel great. But I'm to the point where eating, this ritual of eating where we take a dead bird or a dead fish and dress it all up fancy.
Doesn't necessarily have to be the killing of an animal, by the way.
Well, whatever. But, to go through that whole process of, let me prepare a meal and, I've been eating for 65 years.
Have you?
I don't want to waste any more time eating, and then I got to clean up the dishes, and then you sit around for 3 hours and go, I got to start preparing dinner. And then, it's like, just drink on a protein shake. I want to go do stuff.
You and Seinfeld have a lot in common, I feel.
So to me, it's like the thrill of eating and taking, divas out to dinner and all that.
Yeah.
Was great years ago. Been there, done that. Now I just want to use, I just want to fuel up the bod because it's just a machine. Comes in, goes in pretty and comes out,
Do you take no pleasure in food anymore?
Well, I take pleasure in it, but not like a lot.
What else is so important that you have to get to?
And, poker playing on the laptop while I watch TV and pool floating.
Yeah.
I still do a pump. I do my light pumps, and then I've been messing around with the performance center a little bit.
Well, it's funny you say that because I did a tour of Japan, and Nick Bockwinkel was on the tour, and at the time he was in his late 60s, I think. He wasn't wrestling. He was just there because they were like helping with the AWA. The AWA championship was being defended, whatever. But anyways, not whatever. Obviously, respect to the AWA championship.
It doesn't matter. I still have it too, by the way.
There you go. Well, so did Nick Bockwinkel. I think everyone had a championship. You have the original one though.
Well, I still have it because he closed the business when I had it,
and it's yours.
I kept it.
Nice.
Wife took it.
But he was there every morning. He would get up and he would still do his bands and his squats, and he would still do the routine, even in his 60s and 70s. And you're still like, I gotta go to the gym and get it done.
Well, yeah, I really we got a nice setup with the kind of weights right upstairs, so I don't even have to go to the gym really. But I can get a good pump up, and I'm at the point where if I don't pump up, I feel like, but I feel good, so it feels good to pump up. And my workouts don't take long, 30, 40 minutes on pump because I do a lot of reps. Yeah. No more heavy stuff.
You still going to the gym, or you got?
If I eat too much too, then when you get older, you don't need this. So you get the pot belly, you get the jowls. I'm looking at guys. I see Arn, Michael Hayes, some other ones. These guys blew up to over 300 pounds.
Right.
And then they all complain about it, and I'm going, well, just don't eat so much. My God, it's not brain surgery.
All right. Where's the tan? This tan is just, this is a beautiful tan.
For the lack of doing anything. It's just, it's Florida. So, I lay by the pool for a couple hours, strong sun.
With such a long career and everything, like, what did you foresee? Like, when you were in your, 30s, maybe, I'll relate to myself. So if I'm 36 now, when you were my age, what did you see this as your retirement plan? Like, did you see now what you would be doing then? Does that make sense?
It makes sense. I'm trying to go back into the time warp to, that time. And that time, pay-per-view was the big thing, and little did we think of, 10, 15 years down the road, there would be cell phones and wrestling would get so huge from what it was. We couldn't even think that far ahead because we had no idea what kind of technology was coming.
Not even just wrestling, but were you foreseeing for yourself for a retirement plan?
Well, for myself, I figured, and I did pretty good, we didn't make the money back then that the guys are making now, some of them, if you made $200,000, $250,000, that was big money back in the 80s. And then when WCW started and the big money, giveaway happened, Guys are making 500 grand, 600 grand, then merchandising, and then now you got some guys making millions of dollars a year with all this stuff combined. But back then, but we could do things you couldn't do now either. I bought my first house for 65 grand and sold it a few years later in Connecticut for 120 grand, and then we made money different ways. So I wound up okay, and then Kathy, Vern's daughter, she was set. So down the road, I was just thinking, well, when I get too old to do this, 40s or 45, I'll just quit. And then I was going to try to play pro golf on the senior tour.
That was the plan.
That was the plan. And then that kind of started happening in my early 40s when I was in WCW and the politics kept changing and Bill Watts was in. It was a good time to get out. I didn't want to stay there and let Bill Watts bury me in what he was doing. But it was just a weird thing. I had one of my knees scoped. They paid for it. And they gave me a call one day because they fired Jesse Ventura. And they said, hey, can you come do us a favor and do some voiceovers on this wrestling show we taped? And I went, yeah, I'm just sitting around getting paid. I'll come down and voice over, do the color work on the... So I did the color work on a couple of shows, and this one guy comes busting in from TBS, and he's going, that was the greatest stuff I've ever heard. Did you ever think of... And they offered me a big-ass contract to do the color work.
Yeah.
So I had no intention of being a color man.
When you were doing that, though, because it's weird that you say that, because I find myself in an interesting position now where I'm wrestling with Ring of Honor, and they asked me to do color commentary, and then all of a sudden I was like, you're great at color commentary. But in your head, were you just doing a thing, or were you like, yeah, I'm probably going to be good at this? Like in that one thing where they just called you, and it's not like you did any preparation, right? You just
no, I did. I never done it before.
Yeah.
So I just went there and did it, and I was blessed with the gift of gab.
Yeah.
And I used to have a tape recorder. If I go down the road and hear something from a song like the Stairway to Heaven, something would pop in my head about taking that Stairway to Heaven to get the championship, and I got a recorder, and I'd record some thought I had.
Oh, your microphone.
And then by the time interview day came, I'd listen to all the thoughts I had during the week and steal some cool lines. I stole one good line from the Indiana Jones movie, it's Fortune and Glory, kid. So
it wasn't Dr. Jones, Dr. Jones?
No.
No, okay.
But I was gifted with, I'm always a good interview guy. But my belief system in the business, too, because when I did the commentary, I did it like I believed in it, because that's what's inbred in me. And the guys, so when it came across, people don't realize, and the announcers are kind of underrated for the job they do, because all the hard work that goes into everything, the announcers are the ones that have to bring it to life. So if you got a bad announce team, guys are killing themselves and doing fantastic moves, and you're talking about something else, with no emotion.
Yeah.
But a broadcast team is an important part of the show.
What do you think about Ron Trongard?
If I remember Ron good, again, back then in those days, I was so busy with the wrestling, and I didn't even really think of the announcers. Yeah. Until I got in it, I didn't even think about it.
I think that's most people too, right?
Yeah, I had no plans of being a color guy. I wanted to be a wrestling star, blah, blah. But it was a great 10-year run, too. So I got 10 years in a new generation that got to see me. And then when the time was right, I had some influence with, some stuff like the New World Order idea. And I programmed some of that and wound up with me and Bischoff. And so I pulled myself out of the ring once a blue moon to keep the publicity going. Did a thing with Regal, I think in 95.
And so you did that on purpose? Like in your head it was like, what was your mentality of like, it's funny, it's interesting you say that. In your mentality is like, I need to get back in the ring to show them that I still wrestle, or to show a new generation? No,
it wasn't that. It was a couple other ideas. Actually, by the time like Regal showed up in 95, the business working-wise already changed. And the guys like Flair and Arn and me and Steamboat and some other guys, were kind of fading away or being used different, getting a little too old. And they were bringing in a bunch of new guys. You had the Steiners, and you had the Nasty Boys, and you had the Road Warriors, the Public Enemy, Lex Luger, who was 3 clotheslines and a torture rack. And basically everything turned into clotheslines, where all these guys were clotheslining each other every match now instead of like doing the wrestling thing. The business was changing. And when I was doing the announcing, me and Tony, we'd get to the room, and we didn't know what the show was. Just only one guy knew that edited it. The other guys that showed up didn't know. I looked at the card, and I'd see, the Nasty Boys versus the Public. And I used to set the over-under for clotheslines during that show. And it was
Would you bet with somebody?
Yeah, and all of us would throw in $5, 4 or 5 guys in the pocket. I look at this. We got these guys. That's going to be okay. I'll set the over at 30 clotheslines.
Yeah.
So back in the mid-90s, sure enough, boom, Nasty, but clothesline, tuck a clothesline. I'm going, we hit the over.
Yeah.
On the show, and we used to bet on it, and that kind of brought me to the Regal thing because Regal came from England, and he could work, he could wrestle. He was a great character. He did a great character job where people hated him just standing there. And I went, let me do this kind of like an example. And plus, a little shot of pub never hurt now and then, because I was broadcasting a few years. So
let him know.
But I saw a guy that could do something, and I told the guys, and the first match me and Regal had on TBS was like 27 minutes, and then it went off the air. And I was going to have a heart attack. I thought I was going to die. I didn't wrestle in 3 years, but we didn't throw one clothesline. It was really a great match with moves and holds and stuff. And Brian Pillman was running around backstage going, "Oh my God, they put on a clinic. They didn't throw one clothesline in a half an hour." So I tried to show the guys you could have a match, and you don't have to throw 90 clotheslines. It's getting boring.
Yeah. I love that.
And today, you still hear the announcers every match. What a clothesline. Bang.
I love that in the 90s. It was like, now it's super kicks, but like back then it was clotheslines, and that's how much
Well, it's clotheslines, super kicks, and for some reason, everybody's got to get up. One guy's got to get in one corner and wait. The other guy's got to find the opposite corner, do something stupid for 5 seconds, and then run across the ring into the guy's foot. And that happens every match.
Yeah.
So we're trying to get these performance center guys, just don't do that.
I love that your speech, you come in, you're like, guys, no clotheslines, all right?
Yeah, I mean, it's only been 20 years or so.
Yeah. Tell me about pro golf. Where did you find that you were?
I golfed a lot, and then the 10 years of broadcasting where I only worked like a day and a half a week, one nitro, fly home. So I had a lot of spare time, so I did a lot of golf.
Were you good at golf before that?
Yeah. Well, I was pretty decent. Raised when I was a kid on golf. My dad was a golfer and got me involved as a kid. So I was always decent and didn't play too much on the road because we were pretty busy in the old days, but then played more like in WCW. And then for 10 years as a broadcaster, I played a lot of golf. And I was like a scratch golfer. Yeah. And I'm thinking, well, shit, when, I'm 50, so I could play on the senior tour. So I tried some professional mini tours, and when WCW ended, I moved to Florida and played on some pro mini tours, and it was exciting for a year or so, but I was 3 strokes just not good enough to win money that would be worth it. I mean, wound up being a job. I'm driving to Charlotte. I'm up at 5 in the morning for a 6:30 tee time. The wind's blowing.
Now, but like as a person who's like obviously competitive in terms of like even when you're younger, wrestling, weightlifting, whatever, getting into this job and being competitive in wrestling, I'm surprised that like it didn't take you over to win those 3 strokes over and get on that tour, or is it just getting older and being like, I'm over
Well, you know what? I think it was just while the guys I was playing with, some of the guys were on the European tour and the Order of Merit. They were pros their whole life, but just never made it to the top pros you heard about and saw on TV. So they've been golfing for 20 years or so, or 30 years before they got to the senior tour, and I was out in the ring wrestling for 20 years and stuff before I hit the senior tour. So it was just there was just guys that were better than me.
Right. I love the idea that there was golfers, and then they were hoping their senior tour would be to get into wrestling, like the opposite of you. Maybe it wouldn't work. Okay, so you're a Chicago guy. I'm a Chicago guy.
Oh no, really? Okay, what part?
I grew up in the suburbs. I live in Wicker Park right now.
Oh, you're still up there?
Yeah, that's where I live.
Sorry.
Yeah, thank you. I'm still alive, so we're doing okay.
Shot.
Yeah, I'm doing all right. Right, I think everyone thinks of you as a Pittsburgh guy.
Well, I was born on the south side of Chicago. 1951. And then maybe a year and a half old, my dad bought his first house in Lansing, Illinois. The whole family was in Chicago. Lansing was a suburb. He worked for U.S. Steel right across the line in Gary, Indiana. So I was kind of raised till I was about 12, 13 in Lansing, Illinois, with the whole family in Chicago thing, every weekend. And then we moved to Pittsburgh. My dad got transferred to U.S. Steel headquarters when they opened in Pittsburgh. And at 13, I remember Goldfinger was on the movie screen, 1965. I wasn't allowed to see it. So I was only an 8th grader or something. So then Pittsburgh, that's the first time I saw wrestling. Mm-hmm. Channel 11 and Bruno, and that's where I got hooked on it.
Was there any? Is it just one of those things where you're just sitting and watching? Was your dad into it?
No, Dad hated it.
Hated it.
I mean, he didn't hate it, but back then wrestling had a different stigma. It was like you were a wrestling fan and loved it, or to the rest of the world, you're a wrestling nut. Nuts. Yeah.
I feel it's
like
still almost
thing.
The same, though.
It's still kind of like that, except more people who don't watch it say, "Oh yeah, it's crazy like that." You can hear them on the news, on the news channels. Every time the politics gets weird, they go, "Oh, it looks like the WWE out there."
Yes, of course.
So it's a more acceptable, thing than it used to be. So it was kind of a combination. But my upbringing in the 50s, when you watch TV, it was only like 3 channels. It was still the theme of good over evil. There was the Lone Ranger and Zorro, and the good guys were always good guys, shooting you in the hand. Good always triumphed over evil. And when I saw wrestling and saw Bruno, it was this guy picking up these big bad guys and basically overcoming evil, saving the damsel in distress. And to me, in my warped mind, that was a way for me to do that, because deep in me, that's what I wanted to do. I'd love to be a good guy and save a damsel in distress and kick the ass of evil. And it's kind of what's in all human beings in our soul, good and evil. And if you're a decent human being, you can't stand evil, So that part of it drew me into it. Plus, I knew in me the first day of first grade that the crap they were teaching me and trying to brainwash me into the society that's anti-natural, I didn't want nothing to do with. I kept looking out the window watching the bird take off from a branch to this branch and take off and come back. And the whole first day of first grade, some teachers yapping about some crap. And meanwhile, they're dressed like a penguin. Yeah. There's a guy on a cross nailed there bleeding. That's what you want kids to see.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to be the bird. So when I got older, I also realized, pro wrestling, as I wrestled in high school and college, I realized, pro wrestling, okay, is that. But it was also a freedom and a different lifestyle, which was basically this traveling circus. Mm-hmm. It kept you out of the 9-to-5 reality I saw my dad come back every day with. And I didn't want anything to do with. So I kind of left reality via showbiz in a way.
Were you a bit of kind of an anarchist kid a little bit?
What's an anarchist?
Just reform from society. You don't like authority. You don't like rules.
Well, no, I don't mind rules and authority, but it just what I can't stand is corruption, and I think.
Well, then why are you in wrestling?
Well, wrestling was a way. Again, when I watched it, it was always the good guy would overcome the bad guy.
From the outside's perspective.
From the fans, yeah. Your hero, Bruno, would eventually beat the evil Ivan Koloff. Mm-hmm. And, but it's just, corruption and stuff. It's just, boy, don't get me into this. This is heavy stuff.
Yeah. Well, but if we tag it, if I can kind of move that to wrestling, when you see the corruption of wrestling, then not corruption within wrestling for the years that you did it, and there probably was a lot of it.
What corruption?
I don't know.
Wrestling?
Maybe I'm talking about it in the wrong context though. But just the idea of just the politics and people coming from the inside, and probably during that WCW era, there was stuff going down. Am I correct on any of this then?
Well, I don't know what the corruption.
I don't know. Maybe I don't know what corruption means.
I mean, the one thing about wrestling, it was its own unique business.
Right. Well, what do you mean by corruption then? That you don't like corruption?
Well, I mean corruption of the natural system and the anti-natural system we live in. Like you say, money. And human beings, and just to keep it simple, you got a handful of families who own the banks.
Okay.
They print money out of thin air. And then they spread it around and charge people interest and basically kind of turn humanity into one giant anthill of everybody getting up at 5 doing something to get money that they take half of it back anyway.
Sure. So if I said, well, what about the idea that, you know...
And in the meantime, there's certain people that are getting rich by screwing everybody else and, you know.
Vince McMahon, he owns this thing. Vern Gagne, he owns, you know, everyone has to work for him. And there's that idea of that in wrestling, right?
Well, there's an idea of that in everything. I mean, because we're all creators. And, you know, you mentioned, you know, Vince, you know, in the WWE. And Vince was probably, I mean, there should be a statue of him someday. Because what he made from what he got, and there was times when Vince had the guts to mortgage his house to run WrestleMania and, you know, told Linda, hey, look, if WrestleMania bombs, we've lost our house. And it didn't bomb, and he wound up building $1 billion. But that also employs a whole bunch of people, and a whole bunch of people can become stars and movie stars. So, it's, you know, there's different level of creators.
Okay.
You know.
Okay, so when did you fall in love with wrestling and then say, like, hey, I'm going to get into this, or I have to get into this?
Well, when I was, I mean, it didn't take long. I started watching Channel 11 Studio Wrestling, and Bruno became my hero, and I started wrestling in the 8th grade, and Pennsylvania was one of the few states back then that had wrestling programs that started, you know, young.
Can I stop? So you didn't see a correlation between what you saw on television and the idea of amateur wrestling?
Well, I saw amateur wrestling as a way to start learning the basics to become a professional, you know.
But it was spawned on the idea that one day you want to be that.
Oh, yeah. I did it strictly, you know, and then during wrestling season, I took judo or jiu-jitsu because I wanted to make sure I learned everything I could because I wanted to be a professional wrestler. Yeah. I hated college. The only reason I went to college and they offered me a scholarship because of the wrestling was because back in my day, if you didn't go to college, you were in Vietnam running around getting shot at for nothing.
Right.
So
you're like, I can't get shot at. I got to be a pro wrestler.
No, I'm not running through the jungle getting shot at. Yeah. So the bankers and the oil companies send your kids over. Yeah. So I went to school, but I just couldn't stand it. I just went there to make Bruno happy because my parents cornered him one day, and Bruno promised he wouldn't start me until I got a degree for a backup in case I got hurt. Because what I thought wrestling was at 18, 19, and all psyched up wasn't the reality that Bruno knew it was. Mm-hmm. It wasn't a guarantee of anything, and you might break your neck. Yeah.
How'd you befriend Bruno then? How does it get to the point where your parents are talking to him?
Well, you know what? That's another classic story I tell. I was such a big fan. When I turned 16 and got my driver license, my mother did some volunteer work at the school, and Bruno's kids went there, and she sneaked me his address. And I found out, Bruno only lives a few miles down the road. So every time I drove off kind of in that direction, I go out of my way a little bit and drive by Bruno's house. And the way his house was in the front, along the side, you couldn't see the backyard. It was fenced, and it had a big-ass row of hedges on this one side next to the road, so you couldn't see his pool and stuff in his backyard. But I go by his house. And one summer day, I'm driving by, and for a second through the hedges, I could see him standing by the pool getting a suntan.
Yeah.
Okay.
I like also the visual you did, like he's just standing with his chest out.
His theme was if he stood by the edge of the pool, the sun would also reflect on the water and get under his pecs.
Yeah.
So, I mean...
to which you've been using to this day.
Yeah, same thing. I do that too. Yeah. So I saw him, and for some reason, I couldn't help it. I stopped the car, got out, didn't bother walking around looking for an entrance. I started crawling through the hedges.
By the way, Bruno's house, huge? Or normal person house?
Kind of a normal person house, but very nice. I mean, it wasn't like no mansion.
Okay.
And he's still in the same house.
Okay.
But so I'm crawling through his hedges, and I'm getting stickers and bushes and twigs on me, and I come out the other side, and Bruno, he looks over and sees this, 16-year-old skinny kid coming through his bushes, and I walked up and introduced myself to him. And I was very, respectful, and he was very nice.
You're very respectful as you're entering and breaking.
Yes, I'm breaking and entering. And, but he was my hero, and, that was his gimmick. But he was that kind of guy, a good guy. And that happened a couple times. I saw him, I'd stop by, and we started talking, and he was impressed by my amateur, record in wrestling. So we started working out together in his basement because he had a bench set up and an incline. And back then, when I did his routine, which is why I kind of resembled him with a bigger chest and arms, because that's all he did. But when I was 21 and breaking in, I weighed the most I ever did, like 245. But I was benching 465 and a half, which was a lot of weight for a 240. Bruno was still doing 505 at 40 years old or whatever. But during working out with him, he'd talk and he would teach me, and I would learn the psychology, how to make money in this business, because he was the number one biggest success. And he was the one that programmed his storylines, I guess you'd call them.
But at this point, you haven't even taken a bump. You haven't run the ropes.
No, I'm learning stuff before I even got in the ring.
He doesn't even know if you're coordinated or not.
Well, he knew it from the amateur background, and he was impressed. And I got strong quick.
Right.
And but that's basically, I just busted into the guy's backyard. It was almost like a destiny thing. I was telling this in my Hall of Fame speech as I blacked out and didn't remember what the hell I said. But I was talking about it was almost like, to me, life's a dream anyway. We're here for a while. We're all infinite awareness. There's no death. And we're here for a while. We have a dream, and then we leave. And it was almost like a dream. I'm walking through, like, the rabbit hole, through these hedges, and there was my hero. Yeah. And the next thing I knew, I was in the ring and, did the biggest thing ever for those days with my hero. And then down the road on the Hall of Fame, Bruno was there again introducing me. It was almost like he opened the door that finally let me out of that dream. And it was a kind of a cool ending. But it was kind of like just what I wanted to happen. Yeah. I didn't want to live in normality, and I didn't. And it worked out good. Yeah.
When you when he started you out, so did he started you out and trained you and told you
Well, he showed me some stuff because he knew, all wrestlers back then, knew hooks and stuff, how to break your neck, how to break your arm. And so he showed me, some wrestling stuff. And then there was other guys, too. Me and Bill Eadie worked out together at Guido Mongel's place. Had one in Pittsburgh. And because Bruno was taking me under his wing, when I would show up at the shows, guys they didn't want you in the business in those days. Right. But because I was Bruno's guy, everyone was nice to me, and they'd show me stuff and tell me stuff, the old-timers, from Chief J. Strongboat, Arnold Skolin, and Monsoon, because I was Bruno's guy. Did
you realize that then?
No, I was too young and dumb. I was just having a good old time. And
thought everyone was like the nicest person.
Yeah, very respectful to everybody, but I had no idea. Later I look at it and I go, they were all nice to me because of the politics. And then I started learning the politics, which was a lot different back then than it is now.
Tell me why.
Well, because back then there was no contracts. And it was, it was basically, if you didn't draw money, if you didn't sell tickets, you didn't eat. So it was
well, what are the political moves then?
Well, the political moves basically were you really had to be good, and then dealing with the promoter, you had to be sharp and look at the house because they might say, well, we only drew this much, but you'd have to say, oh, wait a minute, I counted them. You had over 3,000 people. That's 9, blah, blah, blah. And it was kind of like, headbutting with the promoter, but if you were a top guy, you'd get away with it because they needed you. If you were an underneath guy starting off, you took what they gave you and didn't say nothing, or you'd be gone because there was no contracts. Yeah.
Did you ever look at all that knowledge that Bruno would pass on to you before you even started wrestling? Did you ever look at that as any kind of looking back at it in hindsight, any kind of disadvantage? You missed out on opportunities to kind of learn that yourself?
No, it was a great advantage because number one, no one else would have told me that stuff, and number two, because Bruno knew what he knew and programmed the way he did. No. There wasn't too many guys that knew what Bruno knew. So I really got an education from Bruno plus other guys on the top level that other guys my age never got because they weren't involved with those guys. They came up a different way.
So what was your first match?
I did some matches, boy. I think at some small high schools when I first started.
But you remember your first match?
Yeah, the first match I remember because they wanted me to go on first, and I remember being so scared. I wouldn't. Put me on second. I can't. Put me on second. So I went out second, and I remember walking out, and the first thing that hit me that I never even thought of was as I was walking out, and I was pumped and looking good. Everybody in the place was dressed. They had winter coats on and clothes on, and I'm walking out with nothing on but a little pair of tights. Yeah. And I didn't even think of this. So now I'm in the middle of 3,000 people in some high school.
3,000 people?
Well, it's a high school, though, so it's packed.
In your first match?
Yeah, probably, because back then, their little shows, high school, they'd sell out of high school. Maybe 2,000 people.
Little tiny 3,000 people shows.
Yeah, but back then,
Was this WWF?
Well, this was kind of a branch off of them. Bruno owned Pittsburgh,
was promoting, right?
So Bruno would be at this little show. So you'd have a lot of people, which would be a couple grand. So I walked out and I felt naked. Like you'd have a weird dream. You're naked in front of the world, and everybody's staring at you. That's what I felt like. And my knees got so weak and weirded out. I was so strong, but I could hardly walk up the steps. I was going up the steps to get in the ring, and they were like rubber legs, and it took a good 10, 15, 20, a while to, shake off that weird feeling and realize, but everybody's also staring at you. So
they
the
got
first
clothes
time,
on?
So the first time was that, unexpected kind of, whoa. But then, I got used to it.
Did Bruno have you wrestle his buddy?
His buddy?
I mean, somebody he knew, he trusted,
I wrestled a guy that would be, was an older guy that wasn't that great. That was a hang-around that today they would call them like a jabroni.
Oh, yeah.
And, I beat him quick. I was so scared. I think the guy just probably fainted because he got this young, strong kid, and he was already a little older. His job was just basically to get beat up. So I think he probably just fell down quicker anyway just to get rid of me.
Yeah.
Pin me, get off me, get the hell out of here before you hurt me.
And you wrestled as Larry Zbyskzo on that?
Yeah.
You always wrestled as Larry Zbyskzo?
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Did you, in your head, do you ever, wish you had, a weird, stupid, I know, in that heyday when Vince was, putting weird gimmicks on everybody, and you never went there then, but, did you picture, maybe I'll go there and I'll become, Karate Larry or something?
Well, you know what? I couldn't do that because after what happened with Bruno, the Shea Stadium, the me stabbing him, I was so known. I had a reputation. I had the name already that by the early 80s when all the characters were coming out, the Macho Man, and everybody was the this or the that, the Hulk, whatever. It was too late for me. I was already Larry Zbyskzo, and I was still kind of young, so to piss everybody off more, I would call myself the living legend, but I was still a younger guy. But everybody knew it's because I stabbed Bruno, so I was an a-hole. But if I would have tried to do a different character, it would have been too late. It would have been, it's Larry Zbyskzo with the costume on,
Right.
But, so other guys came along that started kind of as the character.
Well, and it's weird that I said, not that it's weird that I say that because I know, but you did start doing some of the karate stuff, and you'd come with the gi.
Yeah, I did. I didn't plan that. That was a kind of a silly story. That was Vern. And back in the old days, when they hated me, I got shot at, stabbed. So I always carried a gun on me. I had one in the car, and in the old days, I'd throw it in the bag. You get in the airplane. There's no security. You just go on the airplane,
Right.
You just walked on, boom, flew off. But then the security shit did start, so I left the gun out of the bags, and I started carrying the nunchucks around because there were people still trying to beat me up. Fans would jump me in, cars would be smashed. So I carried the nunchucks in the bag, but they were heavy set, and I used to use them before the show to warm up. I'd be in the shower, swing them around, loosening up and bending over and getting... And one day Vern walks by and sees this, and he's never saw him before. And he goes, "What the hell is that?" And I go, "These are nunchucks, a Japanese karate weapon thing. I'm warming up with them." "That's the new kind of shit I'm talking about." And I go, "What the hell's he talking about?" The next thing I know, he's flying a ninja, Mr. Go, in from Japan, and he wants me to wear my old karate gi and bring nunchucks in the ring. and he had Bockwinkel dressed up like Indiana Jones. Bockwinkel had the whip and the hat for a while, so this was Vern's idea of adding character. Now, because I was an asshole, I could get away with this. I just made it look like how much tougher I was, and but my character mainly was Larry Zbyskzko, and people ask me, well, how could you stand there and they chant so long? And they called it stalling after a while, but the place was going nuts, and so why do anything? That would make them, So I'd milk it. But the secret I stole from Bruno and the old timers to get over was the fans in those days, they really believed, you forget wrestling, this guy's an asshole. They believed I was just an asshole. So, forget the wrestling. So it was an easy time for me really to get him to hate me.
Are you a bit of an asshole?
No, I'm a great guy.
So did that hurt your psyche a little bit?
No, I loved it.
You loved it.
I loved it. The more people hated me. A little bit of you
wasn't like, oh, but I'm a good guy.
No, back then it was great because I was doing a great job.
Yeah.
Everybody in my business, knew it was a great job.
Okay.
As they snuck me out in the trunk.
Yeah. Like Indiana Jones.
Yeah, of a car. But that was Vern's thing. So that went on for a little while.
Can you tell me about the idea? So the idea of Vern, is that his, I'm trying to battle with Vince?
Yeah, that was
Indiana
his.
Jones.
Yeah, when the cable, the territories were there, but then a new era came. The nationwide territories were going away. Vince got a big jump on everybody, and Vince was the young blood. He was the young promoter. He had the vision. The old promoters, Vern with the territory, the Crockett's with the territory, they did great. They were millionaires, and it worked for them. And they were older guys, especially Vern. He's set in his ways. He didn't really see it coming until Vince took everybody's top guys, because there was no contracts. And Vince made them big offers and took a couple guys from the AWA and the NWA. So when he ran nationwide, he had everybody's top guy. And then the promoters, Vern and the Gagnes, freaked out and tried to compete with what Vince was doing. And they tried some things. And then later 80s, we tried to get Vern to shut down the doors already, because the territories were starting to go away.
I wonder what some of the last minute, and if any don't spring in your head, maybe I'll throw some at you. But the last minute ditches of the idea of oh, let's make him Indiana Jones. Oh, let's make him Karate Guy. Do any of those come to your mind? Weird things that you guys would never have done, but now he's kind of just grasping at straws to do in order to try to hold on to the times.
Well, he was kind of doing some of that, but his problem was he had the same guys. I mean, I must have wrestled Nick Bockwinkel 100 times or so, and Nick was getting up there, but he still had Nick, so he should have had new younger guys coming up. Greg Gagne and Jim Brunzell were a good team back in the day, but then it was just Greg by himself, and he was already been around a long time, and he was 210-pound wiry, and they were pushing Greg. Greg was coming out of a swamp like he was Rambo.
Yes.
Greg was dressed like Rambo, and Bockwinkel was Indiana Jones.
Right.
But nobody bought Greg Gagne as Rambo. Yeah. He was one of him and Brunzell high flyers. So Vern kind of hung on to guys he shouldn't have hung on to, trying to make him something that they couldn't be because they were already established as something else.
And I also the one that came to my mind was the Wrestle Rock Rumble. I don't know if you were around for that.
Yeah, well, I think that was a novelty thing. I think they came off pretty good. That was me and Scott Ledoux when I wrestled the boxer. And I remember doing the Wrestle Rock Rumble against Scott Ledoux. Yeah. He was a referee, and then me and him got into it in the ring. But he was the next boxer who fought Ali and was a big name in the Minnesota.
Well, maybe I'm saying it wrong. They made a song where all the guys
Wrestle Rock Rumble.
Okay.
Yeah, Jannetty and Shawn Michaels were on it, and Scott Hall and Henning and me. That was a match where I had a wrestler versus boxer match with Scott Ledoux.
Okay.
It was pretty good, too.
Did you do any other weird stuff like that throughout your career? The idea, because I was looking back and I wanted to see if you were on that Inoki show, but you weren't.
Well, I was on one show where it was the Inoki group versus the Baba group in 1991. I think I wrestled Saito for the AWA belt. And it was a sold-out Tokyo Dome. Might have been 1990, 90 or 91. But that was when Inoki's group wrestled Baba's group in the Tokyo Dome for the first time. I wrestled Saito with the AWA belt. I think Flair might have been there with the NWA belt wrestling somebody. And it was there, it was a big deal back then.
Right. And you wouldn't understand, like, it's like there's probably weird politics going on there, but you're not speaking Japanese. Are you just going about business as usual, like just doing the match?
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, there was no politics with me and the Japanese because
it's Baba versus Inoki. That's probably there's some weird politics.
That might have been their thing. The only thing they would argue about being promoted was money split. As long as they each got their share of the money.
Have you ever tried promoting anything?
No, I know better.
You know better, yeah.
It's so much work.
Why did they do it? Why do people do it?
I don't know. I can't believe how many indie shows there are, and how many guys will kill themselves for no money. On a weekend somewhere or a backyard, and they're dying. Because they see some stuff on TV. And then on the other hand, some of the guys on TV now, they came from doing 15 years of indie shows. You got a lot of guys, I guess, like Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn and a bunch of guys, even Lindsay from here, that have been doing indie shows for nothing for 10, 15 years, and now they're winding up on the big time.
Right.
So to me, it's the weirdest thing because, we just didn't believe in doing it unless you got paid.
Right. But also, you never was able to have that mentality because your mentor was telling you might have not even known to do that, if that makes sense.
Well it does. I mean, back then it wasn't even a thought. I mean, the wrestling was a closed shop.
Yeah.
There was no indie promoters. There was no indie shows. So, that didn't even exist.
Well, that's what it is today.
Today, it's a different world. You got millions of guys really dying to do the same thing that I did when I want to be a wrestler. I just lucked out and drove past a guy's house who happened to be the number one guy.
Right.
Who took me under his wing for I don't know why. But, there's a million guys out there that will go out there, do it, and take a chance on breaking their neck and diving off of this and bouncing off the steps for no money in front of 10 people. Somewhere, hoping someday to wind up in the WWE.
Yeah, and for some, it weirdly happens.
And for a few, So for some of the guys, it happened.
Yeah, a lot of people know that I don't like to read. It's not my thing.
I don't either. I'm a watcher.
Yeah,
Listener.
But I remember I got your book and I read your book.
Sorry,
it's okay. It was a quick read. I got through it.
Well, I wrote the damn thing longhand because I can't type, and I had a stack of papers. I thought I wrote Moby Dick. The damn book came out. It was only this thick.
You had a section, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, it was like about love and wrestling. Yeah.
Chapter 8. I couldn't resist. Chapter 8, I figured no other book did this.
All right.
Chapter 8, when you got done with Chapter 7, you turned the page, it said Chapter 8, love. Then you turned the page, and there was one sentence. Love and the wrestling business do not mix. Chapter 9. It was just a one-line chapter. You're in the wrestling business, don't even think about love. Do the wrestling thing, and they don't mix.
But obviously, that comes from experience.
Certainly. I was an idiot.
Yeah.
I mean, if I had my life to do over, there's a couple of wives that wouldn't have gotten in there.
But I mean, what's your thing? It just doesn't. I mean, obviously that you say it doesn't mix, but
well, you know what? It was just a tough business because number one, you're young. I mean, it was a different world back then. When I was raised, the women didn't work. It wasn't an insult not to work. They wanted to run the house and raise the kids. The man went out and went out and did the hunting and brought back the bacon. Mm-hmm. And then the world changed, so we're like, women think they have to be women by doing something. Mm. It was almost an insult to run a home and raise the kids. So it's just like my first wife, a sweet kid, beautiful blonde from Iowa, farm girl. And we got married too young. I think I was 25. She was maybe 21. I love you, dear. Okay, I'm going to Japan for 6 weeks. I'll see you then. Boom. Then you have a kid. And then you go, okay, I'm going here. I'll be back every Sunday for a few Sundays. And then I'm going to Australia, I'll be back in a month. You're never home.
Yeah.
And then as you're riding around all these towns, there's constant temptation because as soon as you get married, beautiful women come out the woodwork, you know. And then you're walking, you know, and you're on TV. So it's a great life.
All right.
But it's like high school with money for years, you know, but it's just a tough business to be married in because you're never home, you know.
And then I'll segue that a little bit into, it's interesting to say that because it's like the men are out there and the men are wrestling, but there's a women's circuit out there, and there's...
God bless them.
Yeah, well, I meant at that time when you're wrestling.
Well, there was...
Or not necessarily a circuit, but there's these ladies on the shows, and I guess I'd like to kind of know about, like, how much, maybe some of the girls that you would do these shows with, or because like back then they were an attraction. It was like the little people and the women.
Well, yeah, that's how the territories would, you know, always keep the best business they could do throughout the year. You know, because they ran the same towns on a monthly basis, some a weekly basis. So Andre the Giant would come to the territory for a month and leave, and then a month later you'd have the little people come through. But there was a small group of them that lived in one place that traveled together like the circus. And then once a year, the women would come through, and they were like basically run by Moolah, and Moolah had the camp with the lady wrestlers, and the promoters would book them all through Moolah, very limited number of them. And they come into territory for a month and then leave that territory and go to another territory and, you know, come back a year later. So you really didn't see them much or travel with them. They were in as a short-term novelty. And then the month after that, then Haystacks Calhoun would come through for a month. And so there'd be a rotating novelties.
So I don't mean like sexually in any way, but would you become friends with them? And like, would you guys like tell your war stories, or you really didn't become too tight with any of the girl workers?
Well, there was a few lady wrestlers that lucked out, and you know.
I just meant, like, did you have a friendship with some?
Well, yeah, of course I did.
And like, would they relate to the same style as? And I know this. I guess it's not necessarily a question for you. It probably would be for one of them. But like, would you have those deep conversations in the locker room, just like you would with the guys, of maybe with a girl, and them they would write the same chapter in their book?
They were pretty much like the boys.
Right.
I mean, you know, they were the traveling circus group, but they were like the boys. I mean, you know, I remember riding down the road with like Donna Christianello and Tony Rose. When I started, they were already veterans, you know. And then I got to be one of the buddies with one of the little lady wrestlers back in the 80s, and went one time driving through South Carolina, stopped by to see her, and Moolah hated me. So I parked my car. Part of my car was in Moolah's garage where she had a ring. And when Moolah saw my car there, she ran in her house, hit the button to lower the garage door on my hood. She was a sweetheart.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, there was a couple, and there was some cool. I mean, Sherry Martel was a sweetheart. Right. You know, when she first came around, she was a hottie and crazy chick, but, you know, fun to be with, just like one of the boys.
Yeah.
But it wasn't like today where they got, you know, so many of them. And some of the women back then, you know, were an attraction. You know, and then wrestling went through this stage where, you know, the diva, my God, I've never seen so many beautiful women in my life. You know, it must be like, you know, what a time to be on the road.
For them too.
Yeah, they're having a great time.
Yeah. Well, it's fun. I mean, it's funny because you don't think about it this way, but I'll talk with them, and some of them had the same mentality as the guys.
Yeah,
where they want to go out in the bars, and
they're like one of the boys.
Pull the dude. They want to pull the hot dude at the dude.
We all have to be crazy to do what we do, but it's not a bad crazy. It's a creative crazy, you know, to entertain people. Because you know, so the girls that are successful in this business are the same kind of people. You know, they're free souls. They want to have fun. They want to put out energy and connect with millions. And
right.
So they're cool, yeah.
All right, cool. Yeah. And you're cool, Larry. Look how good you look, man. Just hanging out.
I'm hanging in there. And
I love it.
But I only have one bad habit. I don't drink, never drank.
Okay. Really?
Yeah.
That temptation never came on the road for you?
No, I tried it when I was young, like everybody else. But it just didn't hit me right. I mean, if I had one drink, I felt nothing. If I have two drinks, I puked. Okay. There was no happy time, you know, and it tastes like crap.
Yeah, I
so
agree.
Unless it was disguised as a tutti frutti, you know, but then I couldn't drink it. Some guys would have fun, I'd puke.
Right.
So
what's your vice?
I just smoked cigarettes for some reason. I don't know if it was a habit from going down the road, for hours and hours when needed something to do.
Yeah.
But I just enjoy the old cigarette.
You do that when you were younger, too, like while wrestling?
I started at 21 when I got on the road.
Wow.
Traveling and something. But a lot of people smoked back then. It was rude if you didn't have an ashtray in every room. You'd go to see your doctor. He'd be taking your blood pressure. He's got a cigarette hanging out of his mouth. You're smoking. You got an ashtray in the examining room. And so it was a different world, too. And then when everything all of a sudden turned against cigarettes, the rebellion nature in me said, screw it, I'm smoking.
You're sticking with it.
Yeah.
Did you ever, that never hurt your wind, or you never realized?
No, it never hurt my wind, but I did it every night. I wrestled every night.
Right, and you were one of these guys who would put on these long matches.
Oh, yeah, 45 minutes, an hour, 30 minutes,
And the cigarettes never hurt you?
No.
Or do you ever think, like, I wonder how well I could do if I had never smoked. I could have done 2 hours.
I don't know. Who the hell wants to do 2 hours?
Yeah.
1 hour. I was pissed about 1 hour. Shit.
That's awesome. Well,
but I think every night so you blow it out. It wasn't like I sat there. But on the other hand, I never get sick. Either I'm a freak of nature, but I never get sick. And I'm wondering if it's because of the cigarettes, where I have a nice coating where the bugs stick to the tar and never get to me.
It must be. That must be it.
So,
I mean, you're no scientist, but you figured it out.
It makes sense to me.
Yes, of course. Larry, are you on the internet at all?
No.
Do you tweet around or
No.
anything? Nothing.
I don't tweet.
These people who are listening to this and they want to say how much they enjoyed it, how would they ever tell you?
Well, think about it. I'll feel it in a higher dimension. But you know what? I'm just not I have a Razor phone.
Of course you do.
Show it to you. I'm proud of this.
It surprises me. And
a Razor V9 3G, AT&T.
Beautiful.
Unlimited talk and text, $25.
Mazel tov.
But and then I got like 3 icons on my laptop, 2 poker and 1 recycling bin, I think. All I can do email, YouTube, and play poker. That's it.
All right.
But when it comes to Facebooking, I have one my buddy set up and watches it for an important contact. And I have a tweeter, but I don't tweet anything. And I'm afraid to say anything nowadays. For Christ's sake, by the time you say something, all of a sudden someone says, oh, they retweeted this and you tweeted that and said you tweeted this. And I tweeted what? It's not, I'm still come from a time when men were men, and to me, would Humphrey Bogart tweet? I mean, it's like an unmanly thing to do.
I guess. I'm trying to think.
Excuse me, I'm going to tweet.
Oh, I bet. Yeah.
John Wayne, I'm going to punch you in the mouth as soon as I send a tweet.
Yeah. Hashtag.
Yeah, what the hell's a hashtag do? I don't know, and I don't want to know.
Perfect.
I'm watching videos where people are staring at their phones, and they can't help it. And they're walking into traffic, and they're falling downstairs, and they're walking into pools.
Are those the YouTube videos that you like?
Yeah. But the amazing thing I found, I did a lot of research on YouTube on certain things, and it's amazing how much stuff you can learn. But I'm sure there's a lot of crap out there too. But you could do a lot of research of things that there's a lot of information out there, like what I was looking for about some realities and ancient myths, and kind of when you get to my stage of life. And you've been there, done that with other things. Now I'm wondering, where the hell we come from? Because there's some things that are always pounded into the brain of the human being that I don't agree with and find absolute insanity. Some of these belief systems. But so I think it's really cool that there's a lot of info, so I can do that. I'm a good listener. And the research has already been done, where old books can be studied in different countries. So you can learn a lot in a short time.
I would love to sit with you and watch what you watch on YouTube.
Yeah.
That would be a blast. Larry.
It's heavy stuff.
Yeah.
It's beyond this dimension.
I can only imagine. Thanks a lot for being on, Larry. I appreciate it.
Hey, was that it?
That's it, man.
That was easy money. All right.
Easy. Thanks, buddy.
All right, well, thank you. Y'all have fun.
All right. Larry Zbyskzko, everybody. All right, the living legend, Larry Zbyskzo, trying to dodge that Vince McMahon, WWE taking over the world talk. But I get it. He's a Hall of Famer. He's in the Hall of Fame. Otherwise, outspoken, and the grandpa I always wanted to have, or exactly what I want to be when I'm his age. It's basically happening. I'm turning into Larry Zbyskzo, wrestler. Now I'm commentating. He wears a lot of Hawaiian shirts. I'm getting a lot of these proper cloth shirts now. I just got to work on that tan. That's the next part. All right, before we get out of here, let's get into some plugs and
upcoming events.
All right, the best way you can support ColtMerch.com, DigitalColt.com, Twitter and Instagram at Colt Cabana, Facebook /AOW podcast /Colt Cabana. My storytelling podcast, Pro Wrestling Fringe, plus past archives of the show, they're ad-free. They're on howl.fm/Colt. Use the code Colt, get a free month. ColtWrestling@gmail.com is my very public email. Maybe you want to promote me on your show or convention. I have a YouTube channel, Colt Cabana Wrestling. Also, I have a website, ColtCabana.com. That's where I have a P.O. box. Lucha Dad, thank you for the postcard. And CJ sent me a gift, but he sent me a gift of a person I absolutely hate. I don't think he knows that. So I did not chuckle about that. Inside joke for one person. What do you care? Maybe you will if you send me something cool in the P.O. box, and we'll have this conversation right now. Also, Keith and Darcy and Sam sent me some nice letters. Thank you very much. Upcoming Friday, June 2nd, Seattle, Washington, Facebook /321 Battle. Also, I'm doing a seminar the night before Thursday if you're a trained wrestler and you want to come wrestle with me. Saturday, June 3rd, Sunday, June 4th, Chicago and St. Louis, ROHWrestling.com. I believe I am wrestling on the Chicago show, commentary on the St. Louis show. Saturday, June 10th, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, IWCWrestling.com. Sunday, June 11th, Old Forge, Pennsylvania, Powerbomb.tv. That's going to be a big independent wrestling show. Please come out to that one. Australia, I'm coming to see you June 16th, 17th, 18th, 23rd, 24th, Brisbane, Sydney, Perth, Melbourne, Adelaide, houseofhardcore.net. I believe I'm doing a podcast at the Sydney Supernova and also in Melbourne, I think Thursday the 22nd. July 8th and 9th, Newport and Cardiff, Wales, tinyurl.com/Comedy Wrestling Newport and Comedy Wrestling Cardiff, respectively. And August 4th through the 27th, every single night, 10:20 p.m., the Edinburgh Fringe Festival, Edinburgh, Scotland, edfringe.com. I'll see you over there. That is the show for this week. Big thanks to Larry Zbyskzo and the Team Vision Dojo, at Team Vision Dojo on Twitter. Cable Guy Jeff, Stu Stone, Kid Russell, Matt Jenkins with music, Dane Miller, and Creaky Quinn with tech help. We got some sponsors I'd like to thank. Highspots.com, hundreds of full-length titles available to download. A VOD service that's amazing. All the $5 wrestlings, your PWGs. Buy some AMA knee pads, gear, mask, a wrestling ring. OneHourTees.com. They help run ProWrestlingTees.com. That's where you can support your favorite independent wrestler directly. TweakedAudio.com/Colt. The earbuds that I use get over 30% off and free shipping just because you listen to the show. And that is the show for this week. I'm excited to go to Seattle. I think the last time I went was for Pinnacle Wrestling. Maybe 2004, maybe 2005. So I'll give you an update. I'll let you know if they've kept it up out there. I hope so. I know it's a weird place full of many weirdos where I can't wait to fit right in. All right, this has been The Art of Wrestling. For Colt Cabana, I'm Colt Cabana. Thanks. This is only an audio also.
It's only an audio.
Yeah.
Why are they... Okay.